you are looking at Hall of Famer Nikolai Herzog in the feature match area of Pro Tour Kuala Lumpur. We are deep into the tournament, and I've got to tell you, with 12 rounds gone, the top of the leaderboard is pretty stunning. Nikolai Herzog has a shot at top 8. But Bill, give us the big news. Who is actually leading this tournament after 12 rounds?
Rich, I'm happy to say it's none other than John Finkel himself,
Whoa.
Johnny Magic. And it's a shame that BDM's not here to see it. BDM loves John. They've known each other for a long time. He is 11-1 currently as we're sitting here in the tournament center. He's a very, very strong shot for top 8. And he said actually earlier today during one of the feature matches that if he did make top 8 at this event, he would strongly consider going to Pro Tour Hollywood, which is something that he hadn't been talking about a few weeks ago.
Yeah, because we knew he was targeting this event as the limited Pro Tour of the year. Probably wasn't going to be in Hollywood. Berlin is extended. That's a long way to travel if constructed's not your thing. But he says, yeah, I'm going to come to Malaysia. I'm going to sling some cards because limited's limited and always has been. That's his kind of philosophy about it. So he is alone at the top of the standings at 11-1. 10-2 then, you've got about half a dozen guys. Joe Calafell of Spain, Guillaume Wafatapa of France, still absolutely there at X&2. Marcio Carvalho, haven't talked a lot about him, the leading Portuguese player here. Portuguese Magic, not in the greatest of shape just at the moment. Thiago Chan didn't have a great year last year. Andre Coimbra's a decent player as well, but they don't have a large group of pros. Marcio Carvalho really doing the business here. Then you've got Jurgen Hahn, another name you may not know, Canadian. He's made top 8. In fact, I think he's a former Canadian national champion, 2002.
Yep.
And Mario Pascoli, another dual national champion, this time of Italy. Now, we talked about draws. The two guys who've been up near the top with draws are still in the running. Jan Massicard of France, 10-2-1, and then 3 points below him, Hall of Famer, the third Hall of Famer in contention, deep in the tournament, and that's Raf Levy, of course. But meanwhile, at 9-3, you've got 16, 17 guys. Some big names for Bill to take us through. Some of the 9-3s who really need to win their next couple of rounds, Bill.
Absolutely. Paul Chian slipped a little bit today, but he's still keeping it pretty strong. He's gotten out that strong shot at top 8, and we're looking forward to seeing what he can pull off. As you mentioned, Nikolai Herzog earlier in the feature match area, it's always exciting to see a Hall of Fame candidate headed towards there, especially one who made his name in the limited game, winning 2 limited Pro Tours in one season. Seeing that type of dominant player come back on top is just invigorating. Steve Sadin, one of the strong Americans, you had him picked for top 8, another guy who works with the John Finkel crew, and Zvi Mashevitz. Exciting to see someone like that who's willing to travel so far to get just any pro point he can all the way across the world to Australia, doing well at his first big event this season. We hope to see him get paid off for that.
Yeah, and the thing with Sadin, he doesn't just literally go the extra mile, he goes the extra figurative mile. This is a guy who will talk about regulating heartbeats at critical moments to make sure you don't overstress and make the bad error. He's got a really sort of holistic approach to magic, which is pretty rare at the moment, and that's a little edge in a world of very, very small edges. One of the reasons I like Steve so much. But a big name from the US, and I got to say, rewind back to, I think it's our second tournament center. I mentioned Mike Rohn, Geneva champion. He went 1-2 in the first draft, and that's really not where you want to be. Remember, 4-2 was necessary to get you into day 2. He managed that, and then he carried on.
Mike has had a pretty resounding weekend after a bit of a weak start and has gone almost completely undefeated since that point. It's not something that should necessarily surprise people because Mike has always been a very consistent limited player. And as I've said before this weekend, someone that names like Bob Marr have grown to respect a lot. Very nonchalant guy, always reserved. I don't think I've ever seen his pulse out of place whatsoever. So we can expect, hopefully, to see big things from him as well. Still got a couple more rounds to go. He said multiple times this weekend, a lot of magic to play. One of those things where he pushes off the pressure of, I'm undefeated now, what do I do? Am I going to fold? What's going to happen?
It's something we've talked with Frank Karsten about before, particularly on the audio coverage, is that the nature of these Swiss tournaments, we've been playing for the best part of 2 days with 12 rounds down, and these 25 guys or so that we think are in the running for the top 8, now's when it really starts. Now you're in essentially a draft for your life. Because if you go 2-0 and then maybe ID the last round, you're in the first Super Sunday. You lose the first round, this round 13 going on behind us, Nico Herzog playing there. You lose that first round, suddenly those 2 days are in tatters and you're like, Hopefully I might make top 16, make some decent money, but there's no Sunday for you. So we're really at the sharp end now. Well, we're going to take you away from the main tournament to round up our world view of the Player of the Year race. We've done Europe, we've done North America, we've done Japan, and now it's time just to kind of wrap things up with kind of the rest of the world. Well, it turns out there isn't much of the rest of the world in Pro Magic, and a lot of it means Brazil. And you've got three big names: Paulo Vitor, Dama da Rosa, Willie Adel, and Carlos Ramao. Now, right now, Paulo Vitor Dama da Rosa is the leader of those three. He's a level 7 this year. I reckon he's the fastest player in Magic. This boy turns cards sideways at warp speed, and he doesn't really suffer for it. He's got a very quick mind, and it doesn't matter what the format. He did exactly the same at the Invitational, playing Vintage, Cube Draft, Winston Draft. It's like land, go, monster in, attack. He's an incredible, very exciting player to watch, and a great guy. Now, Willie Adel, not here. He's decided not to travel for this one. Back-to-back top 8s in 2006. And what's interesting about him, that year, he was effectively the most successful Magic player on the planet, largely because of the currency exchange for dollars to the Brazilian currency. So he had a fantastic year then, not quite so hot in 2007. And then the third guy of the triumvirate, Carlos Ramao, a former world champion, and he's kind of back on the circuit. Wasn't doing a lot the last couple of years, but he's back, and he's doing pretty nicely. He's had a pretty decent weekend. And that leaves two more guys. Well, from Malaysia, Terry So, the flag bearer for the home nation, didn't have a great weekend, but had a great career, and of course, he is an invitational winner, and that means Rakdos Augur Mage. If you've not seen that card, if you're new to Magic, go and get one of those, because that is Terry So. That was his prize. And finally, can't go without saying, Yuri Peleg, the reigning world champion. He couldn't be here, but he will be in Hollywood, and a deserved world champion. Though that was a pretty decent performance winning Worlds.
Absolutely, and I remember when Yuri Peleg was just a guy who begged the YMG people to let him on his mailing list by giving them the Food Chain Goblins list from Pro Tour New Orleans a few years back. He's come a long way, and it was actually really exciting to see him at Worlds take that championship finally and get a title.
The thing I love most, the greatest story for me out of Worlds with Peleg, is that he arrived with a poor standard deck, and his friend said, you really ought to play this because it's rather good. Now, you expect that from your colleagues within the national team. That's fine. But once he got to Legacy, he had a hideous deck. He freely admits it. It was awful. And then Antonino de Rosa says, you know what? You're at 9-2. You have a shot at making top 8. You do not deserve to take 5 rounds with this piece of hideousness into those last 5 rounds. Here is a good deck, my friend. I'll show you what it does. Go play this, and you have a shot. And part of the reason that we have an Israeli world champion is from the kindness of strangers, as it were. And that's a great thing about Magic the Gathering.
Absolutely, and Antonino de Rosa in specifics, because that's the type of guy he is.
Absolutely. All right, we're nearly done. It's our last piece of trivia for the weekend, and it goes like this. Top8magic.com, which of course is Brian David Marshall, Mike Flores and co., had 3 Grand Prix winners last year. Now, Steve Sadin was one of them, winning Columbus with his Legacy Flash deck, but there were 2 others. Who were they? Tune in next time to find out. For Bill Stark, I'm Rich Hagan, saying bye.